Welcome back to Breaking Tech on Vision on TV, down at the Open Tech Conference in London. And I'm talking to Rufus Pollock from the Open Knowledge Foundation. Rufus, you've got some really interesting open data projects. Can you tell me about them?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about a project, Where Does My Money Go, and open spending. So what we're interested in doing is mapping, public spending, that's government, but also public corporate spending from around the world, so that we can see, to start with, one fundamental thing, we can see where our tax money goes, which is where we...
When you say public corporate spending, what do you mean?
So obviously, there's a lot of information in published reports. As companies publish annual accounts. They also have information about contracts they've received from the government and so on. That kind of information from corporates. From government, obviously, not only is there just general taxation, income, and also overview of spending, how much we spend on the Department of Defence, but now we're starting to see from governments around the world, but particularly here in the UK, really detailed spending coming out of government. I mean, just 6 months ago, the government committed to release every department to release spending over £25,000. Every transaction over £25,000 is now being published, and just today we can announce the launch of the consolidated view of that. All 1.9 million transactions over the last 6 to 8 months are now on openspending.org. You can browse them, you can see the totals going to different companies, you can see how much is spent in different areas of spending, on health, education, etc.
Right, and I can think of lots of uses of that straight away. Yeah, I mean, as if you're a campaigner, for instance, and you have a campaign against a particular company for something it's doing in some part of the world, it'd be very useful to know exactly which government contracts it owns.
Exactly, that's one good example. I mean, I have to say another one is a kind of less kind of almost directly critical or transparency one, but it's also just a feeling of positive ownership. Most of us don't feel great about, those of us that pay tax don't feel great about paying tax. Sometimes I speak to school kids and it's not such a compelling argument to them, they don't pay tax yet. But for those of us pay tax, knowing where our money goes maybe makes us feel a bit better about this thing that we feel negative about. It's nice to feel actually, okay, that street over there, the fact that the pothole got filled in is due to my tax money. And I think that is important because sometimes we forget the government is us. It's us, the state is us. It's not some other, even if obviously we have elected officials who represent us.
So what exactly is the difference between open spending and Where Does My Money Go?
So Where Does My Money Go is the original project here in the UK, and open spending, so Where Does My Money Go global, and it's also the kind of platform. So Where Does My Money Go.org, you can go to the site, it's going to be there, it's focused on the UK, it's got some really lovely visualizations, and it's kind of the front end, the platform, the kind of map of all the money around the world, and the database that people kind of contribute to and we upload data into is kind of the open spending platform. And it kind of came out of a collaboration from Where Does My Money Go with a group in Germany called Off on a Household, which means open budget, and some other groups around Europe and the world. And we now have almost 15 countries with data going into the open spending platform. And it's a community-based project. It's community collaborative-based, kind of coordinated by the Open Knowledge Foundation, and for which we're really looking for people to get involved and contribute.
How can they do that?
So there are two ways. So one is, we're looking to go both global and to go local. So you can go and look at your local town council, look up their spending. In the UK, that's now being published, actually coordinated centrally. But there's a lot of questions still, even when it's published, what could you get the contract that related to that particular piece of spending? Because the big question is, they might be spent that money, but are they not failing to do the job they did? I mean, I come from Cambridge in the UK. There's a huge controversy over a very expensive guided busway, hundreds of millions of pounds, which apparently X years late, most of it's underwater most of the time. So seeing we can see the spending money, or maybe the lack of payment, we hope, from the council, but what was the original contract, what went on there, what's the history of that contract? So I think context, key point to make here is, figures often, are a bit dull. It's the context that's everything here, and getting people to add that context.
The interpretation.
Yeah, both interpretation, but also just even the extra facts, like what did the contract say? What's actually happened? Do we have photographs of the busway underwater? That kind of aspect is crucial to making the spending live. The other thing we really need help is to get the spending. So in a lot of countries, even government data, it's in PDFs or it's not available at all. So we need people to go out, get that data, convert it into spreadsheets, or to get it out of government. And on a local level, they could go to their town council, get it. And the other aspect is identify, who are the companies, maybe who they owned by. Often company names don't, the same company may have different company names when you actually look at the transactions, so getting those together. So we have a tool in openspending.org itself where you can just go online and start helping that, and also flag, with 1.9 million transactions from the UK government, some of them are going to be really interesting and many are going to be very dull. So you can go in there and you can flag them as interesting or wrong. Let's call it this wrong data. So that you can just do immediately online. Also, you can go and if you can dig up data, you can kind of send it to us or upload it, and we'll load it into, integrate it into the system.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and then maybe in the future we'd have a system where the people were given the budget. So I know that from Brazil. That works really, really well.
Right, Porto Alegre. So I was just in Brazil a couple of weeks ago, and so they've got the participatory budgeting is really exciting. So obviously having that information is a prerequisite to be able to get involved and say, hey, actually, I want to have this part of the budget up or down. And I think that is a really interesting thing. So I think there's that aspect of it is really important, kind of governance change that might relate to this, and I think that is important, and that we live, ironically, we fought, most of the fights over getting representational government, moving away from autocratic states. Famously the Civil War in the UK and even the French Revolution were often about money, and they were about control of taxation, and it's kind of weird that we fought for that control. And I think one of the things of the modern world is it's so complex. 1.9 million transactions just the last 6 months alone mean that actually, in a practical sense, we have less oversight and less insight into what our government is doing almost than was previously a case. So we fought to get this, but now for informational kind of overload reasons we have less. And this ability to have really open access to the information and to share it out and to collaborate on understanding it and putting in the context means we've got a chance to really have that oversight insight again.
Sounds fantastic. Rufus, thanks very much for coming on. And we'll be back with another show.